back for another installment of Massive Nyarlathotep, where we last left our heroes. Shelley was attempting to arrange for the release of Natalia and Thaddeus. So, let's pick up from there with Shelley, because Natalia and Thaddeus can't really do too much right now unless they're willing to take a big chance. So, Shelley, what's your plan? I think where we left it was the night, just the end of the day.
Right. I think that I had remembered that I needed to go check in with EB before I went to bed, because he's probably waiting over at the consulate. He had gone to try to give a tip to the local newspaper.
Right, and you were going to check in with him. Okay, let's do that. So it's Sunday. All right, so let's just go to the map here for simplicity. We got the consulate.
Yeah, so this is the same day everything happened, I guess.
Right. Yep. It's just getting late now. Yep. EB is there, waiting for you with Frank. They're not like buddies. EB's sort of waiting out in the waiting area. And you walk in, and EB comes over and says, "Oh, I was worried for you."
Well, unfortunately, there's reason to be. But
everything is all right?
Safe so far, yes. I think so. How did it go for you?
He says, I put this story in, I didn't really put the story in, but I told them about what happened, and they were going to head over to the mosque as soon as they could, so I don't know what will come of it, but I told the people I think ought to know. We'll see where it goes from there.
I suppose the morning paper might enlighten us then.
He nods, and he says, and I trust that your business was successful.
Yes. I've arranged for the release of...
Oh, Slippy just cut out. You've arranged for the release of, and then you cut out. Nope, we've lost you again. I can see you trying to talk, but we're not hearing anything. Nope, still nothing. Oh, Maddie, can you hear me? I can't hear anybody.
Oh.
Hello. Okay.
Hello.
I hear you now. That's
Hello.
weird.
Okay.
Okay, I couldn't hear anything that you were saying.
Yeah, we heard her.
Okay. So what did you say to EB? He's asked how everything went for you.
I managed to secure the item, but and I was met at the hotel by one of the men who want it, and they've agreed to release my friends if I give it to them. And she shrugs. I don't see any way around it. I asked about the imam, and I didn't get a straight answer, but I fear the worst.
Oh, that would be terrible. Well, I don't know. Should you trust these men?
Oh, no, I don't trust them, but the man they sent, I've run into him before in England, And he's not a good man, but he's not a liar either. And so, but do I believe that he'll keep his end of a bargain? Yes.
EB shrugs and he says, I must confess, I don't truly understand what's going on. I hope that you do.
Not as much as I'd like to. I know that we're dealing with powerful, dangerous, very evil men. With, well, their motives are beyond that of your typical corrupt power seeker. I don't know if you really are ready to know exactly what's going on. It might stretch credibility for you. But I appreciate everything you've done to help. I can tell you that our cause is right, and these men are evil.
Anyone who would attack a holy man in a mosque and murder them, and they must be stopped.
Yes. Well, in the morning, I'm going to go over to the bank, and everything should happen in a public place. So I think things are going to be all right.
What do you need me to do?
I wondered if you could ask around. Have you heard of the Clive expedition?
Yes, I have. They are under some disrepute at present.
Yes. I'd like to figure out what and where they are working at present. I think they might have some involvement in all this.
I can ask around.
Be as discreet as you can. Don't ask anyone who you might think would stab you in the back. So
well,
to
that
speak.
narrows the field. Yes, I will be very cautious. And you say that you're going to have dealings with them in the morning. Do you need me to help you in any way with that? I don't know that you should do this alone.
Shelley looks over at Frank.
He's actually inside. Like
he's not.
He's not in listen. I've got him on there, but he's actually he's not in listening distance, and he actually hasn't even noticed that you're there right now just yet.
The American diplomat, he is going to be there at the bank. Honestly, I don't know that there's anything anyone could do if one of these men decided to hurt me, but I don't think that that's going to be the case. I think we'll get my friends back, and after that, she shrugs.
I see.
I don't know.
All right. Well, when will I see you again?
Maybe late tomorrow afternoon at the hotel.
Very well. I will present myself in the afternoon.
Thank you, Evie. Be careful.
He nods and looks at you for a moment. You can see there's a look of genuine concern in his eyes, but he nods and just kind of gives you a little respectful bow and leaves.
Okay.
And I'm having trouble with my connection on Roll20. So, but carry on.
Yeah. I think Shelley would let Frank know that she's headed back to the hotel.
Okay.
And and then head back to her room.
Mm-hmm.
I suspect that she would have a lot to think about that evening. Toss and turn quite a bit if she managed to sleep at all.
Yeah. Yes, I can imagine. Okay. Well, you certainly wake the next morning. Nothing happens in the meantime. That shouldn't have. So, I think we can clear up the details, but I believe Gavigan was going to come by mid-morning, wasn't
Mm-hmm.
it? Let's say he said 10 o'clock to meet you in the lobby. So, is there anything you need to do before 10 o'clock?
I think she would, other than her normal get up, I think she would try to do the scepters again
Mm-hmm.
as her normal morning routine.
Okay.
I think she probably slept very poorly. I think we
Mm-hmm.
maybe had mentioned that maybe she had a nightmare, but maybe just of the general variety.
Yeah.
And after she does that, the Shelley copes with stress a lot of the time by trying to over prepare or, make herself look perfect so that she feels more prepared to confront a situation. So that's kind of what she does.
Okay. Well, I think she's up early enough to to do whatever she needs to do. Since, like you said, it doesn't sound like she would have slept very well at any point. So she's got time to do that. Okay. Maybe a little breakfast, and then we'll say it's about 10 o'clock.
Yeah, she'll.
And was Frank supposed to come by as well?
Frank was supposed to meet them at the bank. Like, not meet,
Oh,
but
okay.
just be there. She told him
Right.
specifically to not do anything if it could possibly be avoided,
Mm-hmm. Okay.
whether or not he follows that.
Right. Yeah. Okay. Got it. Okay. So we'll just move on to 10 o'clock then. And down in the lobby, when you go down, Gavigan is already sitting there with a cup of tea and the newspaper, just kind of looking at it casually and sipping his tea.
Oh, by the way, was she able to scrounge up enough? Like, she probably would have gone through all of Thad's stuff looking for spare cash around.
I'm sure she'd find some.
Yeah,
Thaddeus, how much cash would she be likely to find?
spare wads of cash.
He barters in whiskey.
Yeah.
I imagine he'd have some stash, a couple wads, a few thousand maybe. No, well, whatever the equivalent would be in that time.
Yeah. He's probably got
Couple hundred.
yeah, like in loose change bills, like $200 or $300, let's say.
Whiskey money.
Yeah. For a year.
Okay, so she would have packed whatever she could. She's nervous about running into a financial situation she can't handle again.
Mm-hmm.
And then she'll go down to the breakfast room. She hadn't really made arrangements to meet him there, but she's assuming he'll figure it out.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, yeah, when you walk down the main staircase into the lobby, which you would enter before going into the dining area, you see him just sitting in the lobby, and he's watching for you. So he sees you come down the stairs, and he just kind of sets down the paper. He folds it up and sets it down, and just kind of motions you. He's at like a little table. There's a couple of large, like, what do you call those? Straw-backed chairs.
Mm-hmm. She watches him for just a second, and takes a kind of a deep breath, and then, walks briskly toward him.
Mm-hmm.
And as she approaches, she'll say, "Hello, Edward."
Shelley, my dear. And he stands up to take your hand if you offer it.
Yeah, she'll offer it.
He gives it a little polite kiss, and says, "Would you like a little something to eat or drink before we head out, or are you ready to go?"
I think I'm not very hungry this morning, but I'm assuming you've already eaten, yes?
Oh, yes.
Okay. Well, let's not delay here then.
I agree. Let's not keep our friends waiting. And he makes to leave with you. Make a spot hidden check for me, please. And I would give you a bonus die, actually, because you recognize them. His two big bodyguard goons, they're doing a fairly good job of being discreet and in the background, but you see that they're trailing. They're about 20 yards away. They're like on the opposite side of this big waiting area at their own little table with newspapers.
Are they getting up to follow us as we leave?
Not immediately, but they're going to. It's obvious that they're there to kind of back him up.
Mm-hmm.
You got used to that when you were, in England.
Right.
It's the same two guys.
As they walk out, she thinks about their presence for a moment, and then she turns to him. I hope that your friends aren't here because of me.
Oh, heavens, no. They never leave my side, so to speak.
I can understand that precaution.
It's a dangerous business. He smiles.
She gives kind of a inappropriate little yeah. I've noticed. I was up late last night, thinking about a lot of things, and I have to say, I regret shooting you.
I regret it too, Shelley. I'm genuinely touched that you would say that by way of apology. I understand you're conflicted, and that you only see part of the whole picture. It makes it difficult to make wise choices.
She kind of has been looking straight ahead while she was saying this, but she kind of looks up, gives him a sidelong glance as he says this, and she just nods solemnly. Still, I betrayed a trust of a kind, and that's not the sort of person I am.
Um, he looks like he doesn't know how to respond to that. You can see you've kind of actually made him a little off guard, like off balance with that statement. And he's clearly searching for a response. He says, well, I hope, Shelley, that we may both earn one another's trust in the coming months and years. You may come to understand that you are very special to me, that I hope that our future together is one of trust and mutual respect and discovery. We'll piece this all together.
She just kind of continues walking, looking ahead, slow, as if she is lost in thought.
Mm-hmm.
One step at a time.
Yes. Always the case. He says, and where are we going exactly?
Oh, as they leave the building, she kind of points across the park to where the bank is.
Mm-hmm. Oops. Let's see. Mm-hmm. Okay.
The bank.
Very well. He says, I will wait for you in the lobby then.
Where are Thaddeus and Natalia?
They are nearby in the bazaar.
She looks at him in the face again, kind of a fierceness. You understand that if this was anyone but you I was dealing with, I would insist on being able to see them first.
His expression softens again, and he says, you don't know how much that means to me to hear you say that, Shelley. I'm honored. You have my word. They are alive and well. Well, they were not in the greatest of shape when you last left them, but they are alive and they have not been harmed, and they will be returned to you if you hold up your end of this arrangement. I give you my word on that.
I have every intention of doing so. And I think she just kind of continues in thoughtful silence to the bank.
Mm-hmm. Okay, he goes along with you. You get to the bank, and when you get in, you take a little look around. You can see Frank is sort of dawdling in there. He's also reading a newspaper. Just kind of sitting in a chair like he's waiting to be seen or something.
Are there any newspapers lying about?
Sure.
She'd probably pick one up on her way through, see if there's any major headlines that catch her.
Mm-hmm. It's an English newspaper, but it's not the main story, but on the front page there is a story about the mosque at Ibn Tulun being attacked the previous day in a vicious massacre.
Does it appear to blame the...
It says that the authorities are investigating the cause of, or the culprit. It does note that the inmates were running free, and that some of them were violent and there is obvious speculation that that some of them managed to get loose and wreak havoc, but the authorities are not saying definitively that that is what occurred.
Evie said he was going to an Egyptian newspaper, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like,
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yes. So
well,
this would not be the one. Obviously, this is the British paper here.
She just kind of folds it up and tucks it under, between her elbow and her side, and looks to see if she can find the manager or whoever she had spoken to the other day about the security.
Mm-hmm. Okay. That was Mr. Jenkins. And he's there and happy to assist. He even remembers your name. Ms. Franken, a pleasure to see you again. Do you wish to add more to your box?
No, I've come with payment, and I think I'd like to take my item out. I might want to wear it at a costume ball. But yes, I wanted to make sure that everything was, all the paperwork was, all the I's dotted and the T's crossed.
Indeed. You'll still be wanting to keep the box, then. It will be empty.
Yeah, well, today it will be.
Yes, indeed. Quite. So he takes you over to make payment. He seems... you can see that he's masking it well, but he's relieved to receive the payment for it. And
right, he kind of took a risk, so.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it wouldn't have looked very good for him. So, and he takes you down to retrieve the box, and it is there, and your item is inside.
She lets out a little sigh of relief, being, halfway convinced in her mind that it would be magically whisked out of the vault somehow. But she reaches in carefully and folds it up in a piece of cloth that she brought and places it in her handbag.
Okay.
Thank you very much, Mr. Jenkins. I'll be seeing you soon.
I hope so, and I hope you'll enjoy your day. It's looking to be rather pleasant, actually.
She raises her eyebrows. That will be a first for me.
Well, he says, yes, the weather's very distressing in most cases, but today seems like it's going to be rather mild, also, I'm told.
Well, thank God for small miracles.
Yes. And he escorts you back up and then wishes you, again, a good day.
Well, she'll...
And as you walk up, you can see Frank and Edward on opposite sides of the lobby kind of eyeing each other.
Oh boy, she walks in.
And Frank does not Frank is almost being, puffed up, and he almost has a threatening look in his features right now.
She walks in and she kind of covers her eyes with her hand for a moment in an oh my goodness sort of a gesture, and then shakes her head, throws Frank a glance,
he doesn't even see you.
She just sees. Well, she makes her way toward Gavigan.
Mm-hmm.
She will eventually throw Frank a glance with kind of a settle down hand movement, and kind of cut off his line of sight between Frank and Gavigan. Kind of stand between.
Mm-hmm. Edward just looks at you and smiles, and he says, "You seem to have a jealous friend or something over there."
Oh, Well, you have to understand that everything happened very fast, and I found myself rather without resources, and I had no idea that it was you I'd be dealing with. I am casually familiar with this gentleman over there, and he doesn't know any details, but he knew that I was caught up in something a little bit dangerous and wanted to keep an eye on me.
You can see Edward's features pinch a little bit as you're saying all that. And he says, well, he says, let's just hope he doesn't do anything untoward.
I don't think so. He is American. Americans can be a little impulsive, but
Can they?
she actually smiles a little bit, blushing. Yes, some of them. But like I said, he doesn't really know anything about what's going on. I don't think there's anything to worry about or concern yourself with. I doubt you're worried.
He smiles. Worried isn't the word. I just don't like nosy outsiders poking themselves into our business, that's all. But you are a resourceful young woman, and I'm not surprised you managed to garner some sort of support in a short amount of time.
She shrugs. Well, as limited as my options were, at least there was someone willing to look out for me a bit. I don't know if he would if he understood exactly what was going on. But let's not talk about him. I've got the item safe and sound.
Excellent. Well, we probably shouldn't keep them waiting then. I suppose it's my turn to lead. And he offers his arm to take you out.
She kind of subconsciously glances over at Frank just very quickly, and then takes his arm.
He's kind of got that, looking kind of left and right over to try to see, because you're sort of between him and Gavigan, and he's trying to suss out what's going on.
She'll try to give him a subtle A-OK gesture, and she'll leave with arm in arm with Gavigan.
Okay. And you can see Gavigan give just sort of a subtle look over his shoulder as the two of you walk out in Frank's direction. The glance. And Gavigan well enough by now, you can kind of hear his little smirk that he makes as he walks out, even if you can't see it.
She now actually is starting to get a little mentally and maybe physically sweaty, starting to think about so many things could go wrong now. But as they walk, she asks him, I'm certain that you are a man of your word, but Mr. Al-Shakti, is he likely to cause any trouble during this?
I don't trust Omar, personally, but I can assure you he has no personal interest in any of you. He does not want to upset me at the moment. We're trying to extend courtesies and strengthen a strained relationship. I don't think he would want to do anything at this juncture to endanger that, and I've made it very clear to him that this is of personal importance to me.
She nods, and I'm sure you're right. I just... The problem with being king of the mountain is that everybody else is trying to drag you down, Edward.
He says the trick with Omar is not to draw his attention, really. Don't try to catch his eye or make provoking comments. Just play the person of the background, and he won't care about you.
Yes, I don't think he would. Except, well, maybe a conversation for another time and a moot point at the moment.
He says, at present, Omar believes that I simply have a ridiculous fancy for you. He doesn't understand that there's far more to it than that. And I think it's safest just to let him believe that you're just a trio of bumbling Americans who don't really know what you're doing or what you've stumbled upon, and he'll dismiss you. That is the safest for you.
It's not incredibly far-fetched. So where are we going?
He's been walking you over toward, you recognize actually, I think you're heading towards the Muski Bazaar over here.
And she, as they get there, and I'm sure it's very difficult as now they're being more and more surrounded by, native Egyptians, but she's trying to keep her eye out for anyone she recognizes from the temple.
Okay. I will again allow you to try a spot hidden. Oh. You do, in fact, catch a couple of people that you briefly saw, but you recognize. Like, there's a guy off in a corner just kind of standing, and then another guy. These are both people you saw, and they're kind of hooded again, and they're just pretending to be looking at stalls, but they're obviously you've seen them before.
She immediately glances away from them, probably clutches Edward's arm a little bit tighter just out of nervousness, but looks around for whoever they must be meeting, someone more important. Look.
And Gavigan says, there's Omar now, and I don't think you've actually ever seen Al-Shahti. But it's when he kind of gives a little nod in that direction, it's pretty obvious that he's pointing out this guy. And he has a couple of men that are pretty close by him.
Shelley just kind of follows Edward's lead at this point.
Okay, so you head over, and Edward comes up to Omar and he says, Omar al-Shakti, allow me to introduce Shelley Franken. Shelley, this is Omar al-Shakti. I don't believe the two of you have met.
No, I haven't had the pleasure. And she just kind of steps forward a little bit, shyly holds her hand out as she would to, probably in English.
He gives you this kind of appraising look up and down, and you can see there's almost a little sneer on his face as he does so, and he says, so you are this woman I have heard so much about from Edward. He seems quite taken with you.
Well, everyone collects something or has a hobby. I suppose I might be his.
Indeed. He says, I believe you have something that belongs to me, Miss Franken.
She swallows hard, nods. Yes. And
you
my
have
friends?
You have it on your person, I assume.
I have it here, yes.
Yes, your friends are very, very nearby. They are in a building close to here, under my protection. They will be released as soon as the article has been returned to me and I have verified its authenticity.
I see. Released safe and sound, yes?
Absolutely.
Well,
He says, I have no interest in them or in you, quite frankly, Miss Franklin. And he kind of glances at Gavigan and says, I am not so taken with the fairer sex, as Mr. Gavigan likes to refer to them, as my dear friend Mr. Edward here.
well, I can't blame you. I'm not very interesting. And with that, she reaches into her handbag and she pulls out the folded, it's probably a scarf or something.
Mm-hmm.
And kind of nervously, she steps forward, starts to unfold the cloth so that he can see what she's got in her hand.
He takes a step forward and looks at it, and then looks up at you, and you see him nod and put his hand, he kind of meets your eyes and he puts his hand out to receive it from you.
She kind of takes it, treating it respectfully with both hands, places it gently in his palm. I think she probably tries to avoid actually touching, making skin-to-skin contact. I think that's an instinct.
Yeah, and that's pretty easy because when you put it in his hand, he takes it in both of his hands and holds it up. And you can see... make a psychology check for me. You're not sure. But there's definitely a reaction. And then he nods. And he says, I see you are as good as your word, Miss Franken, and you will see that I am as good as mine. He folds it up and hands it to this man here, who already has like a little bag to put it in, and he puts it in and he kind of tucks it under his robe, and he kind of turns back to a guy who's at a building, and you can see it's this guy, And he just kind of gives him a nod, and he says, "I wish you a good day, then, Miss Franken." And he says, "Edward, will you be joining me?" And Edward says, "Yes, of course." And he turns to you, Shelley, and he says, he takes both of your hands. Are they shaking?
Yeah, probably a little bit.
Yeah. And he looks at you with some concern, and he says, "It will be all right, Shelley."
She kind of leans in and whispers, "How can I reach you if I need?"
He says, "I'll send someone by later this evening."
She nods.
And he squeezes your hand a little bit and gives you a reassuring smile, and then heads off with Omar, and they walk away, and you can see Gavigan's two guys kind of walk past you without really even looking at you, and just kind of trail along behind him.
Yeah.
Yes, that's fun.
Shelley kind of winces at the big bruiser guy. She's screwed him over like twice now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but he's actually not making eye contact with you at all. They just walk by you, and they all kind of disappear, and you see his other two people sort of trail along behind. This guy has gone back into the building where he was, and he kind of makes eye contact with you first, and kind of gives you a little, like, he motions his finger, like, come.
Yeah, she scurries over to the building, her heart pounding, just praying that, they're alive and not mutilated.
And yeah, and when you get to the building, he just walks away. And when you go inside, I assume, you can see that they're in there. They both have their hands tied behind their backs. They're just sitting in a corner, with rags in their mouth and blindfolds. But there's nobody else around. It's like a mostly empty little warehouse kind of place.
She rushes over, reaching into her bag, looking for, probably a pocket knife or something.
Mm-hmm.
She pulls the rags from their mouths, pulls it down, and then starts working on their bonds. Oh, you're really alive. I was so worried that they wouldn't. Well, that they were lying.
No, we're alive, Shelley. We're okay. Just please get my arms free.
Yeah, Natalia looks really banged up, like really bad shape.
Yeah, Shelley kind of reaches out a hand and kind of cups her chin for a minute, looking at her face, wincing, and then looks at her arm and like gives a visible flinch. "Oh, my dear. Yes, let's get those off right away." And as gently but as quickly as she can, she gets the ropes off.
And you hear Frank in the doorway, and he says, "Is everything all right, Shelley?"
Yes, Frank, come in. Do you have a pocket knife?
Yes. And he fumbles around in his pockets and pulls one out, and cuts them loose.
This is a relief.
"Good heavens," he says, "those brutes really mangled you two."
Natalia immediately starts cradling her arm. Fortunately, we're okay. Well, alive, at least.
Shelley looks at the arm. Does it look like medical attention would help, or does it just look pain?
You can make a first aid or medicine. I think it's medicine. Check either one.
Nah.
You're not really sure. I mean, your gut would be sure it could use some attention, right? I mean, it looks bad, and your first reaction would be like, "Oh my gosh," that looks like it's been patched up, but none too professionally or carefully.
Frank, do you know of a doctor?
Sure. Yes.
Someone we could maybe call over to the hotel.
Yes, of course, I'll take care of it.
You've really gone above and beyond the call of duty, helping me here.
Well, it was really nothing. I wasn't going to let that person mishandle you, that's for sure. I don't trust him, Shelley.
She kind of laughs. Well, that's good instincts on your part.
He looks like one of those smarmy Englishmen. I know their type.
I don't think you know his type, but being smarmy is, well, that's the least of it. But let's get Natalia and Thaddeus back to the hotel.
And he says, "Are you all right, Mr. Pepin?"
A little worse for wear, but I've been worked. Natalia's. I need to get Natalia to get some rest.
Yes, of course. Let's get her. Let's get you all back to the hotel where you can rest. He says, Miss Franken has been studiously careful not to inform me too much about what's going on, but I want you to know that if you want me to file an official report, I will.
I don't.
There might be more harm than good, I think, at this time at least.
I'm sure Mr. Nasford's going to think we're involved in something highly criminal at this point, but she shrugs. We aren't, but maybe it's safer for you to believe that.
He says, I'm here to help, Mr. Pepin, and Shelley, of course. You're American citizens abroad in turns out to be a dangerous country for you. So I'm here to do what I can.
It's much appreciated. If the need arises, we will surely ask for your help.
And he offers to kind of give Natalia a shoulder. He'll help you along on your good arm if you want help.
Natalia, she's sweated through, clothes she is on, hair sticking to her face, she does take the assistance from Nasford.
Yep. Okay. Well, about half an hour later, you are ensconced back in your hotel room, finally. And it's quiet, and
Yeah, I think Shelley's going to try to, get rid of Nasford. Maybe he can go fetch the doctor.
He's immediately saying, as soon as he gets Natalia comfortably down on a bed, he says, I ought to go and fetch that doctor for you now. He says, don't you worry, young lady. I'll find the best one I can. And he just heads out of the room then.
Well, one thing about Egypt is it shouldn't be very difficult for them to find something for the pain.
No, this is true. And he's kind of Daddy's just staring at Natalia and looks over at Shelley. What did you trade them for our freedom?
She looks up at first looking kind of shameful, but then she kind of clenches her jaw, folds her arms across her chest. You know what I traded. I didn't have any choice.
Yes, what? I'm not sure there was a fair trade, to be honest.
She shrugs. What good would it have done me alone?
You could have dropped it in the ocean or any place, but kept it with you.
She shakes her head. That might have delayed this Omar person, but she says that wouldn't have stopped anything. The harm's done, and I'm the one who did it. And she kind of starts pacing the room. This business here, I'm sure it's bad, but stopping it isn't going to stop what Gavigan's trying to do.
What is he trying to do?
I don't know exactly. He keeps trying to explain it, and it just sounds, like culty mumbo jumbo, bringing about a new world, the end of this world, sorts of things. But when he had me in England and I was working on that thing, that weapon in Derbyshire, he says that it's basically done.
Basically done.
Yes, that because of me, she says, kind of shaking, that I gave them the breakthrough that they needed, and it's been passed on. It's in the end stages now. That we've got 3 months to whatever it is he's trying to do.
How do we stop him? I mean, there is no stopping him, it seems. Everywhere we turn, there was something, and now he's back. I thought he was dead.
She nods. It seems like everything I try to do, it just makes things worse. I don't know, but at least you're alive. At least you're both alive.
Yeah, for 3 months at least, I think. And then after that, we have to reevaluate our situation. Yeah, he'll look back and tell you. I don't suppose you're feeling any better at all.
I'm not in as much constant pain as I was. And Shelley, any of us would have done what you did in your position. I thank you.
Well, I really am glad that you're all right, and I'm glad that you two had each other. It's strange that you always seem to end up, even in dire situations together. I'm glad.
It seems as if the universe wants us to at least suffer together.
It's better than suffering alone. I truly believe that.
Well, I don't know if it's the universe, but have you seen me try to run? It doesn't work out too well, so I'm better off staying put in most situations, even if it does turn into dire straits for myself and those around me.
True.
Back there at the temple, when you were punching that creature in the face. And you got hurt, and I had grabbed the girdle and I was fleeing, and I had shouted to Thaddeus, "Go get Natalia." But I don't think he even heard me. He was already there. She kind of looks between you two. That bond between you two, well, I envy it a bit, but I'm glad that you have it.
Natalia looks to Thaddeus and I am too.
Well, you don't get close friends often enough, I think. You must do whatever you need to do to protect him. And then he'll look at Shelley. Don't think that I wouldn't have came running to your aid as well. I would have been there.
She says. Well, maybe. But what really matters is we're all alive, and there's still some time to do what we can, whatever that is. What happened? Where did you go? Were you in that house the whole time?
Yet, I remember Gavigan came in with Omar Shakti and before I passed out. And then we awoke in some sort of prison cell, almost. And I'm not sure how long we were traveling for after that. They put bags over our heads and drove us in, I think, some sort of caravan to get here. It sounded like we were out of the city, though.
Yes. We knew roughly that he lived across the river? Yeah, out of the city proper. Did he speak to you?
He did. He originally debated if he should just, I don't know, sacrifice us or something along those lines, but because of the deals he made, we were at least spared that.
How did you... Did he say anything interesting? Anything that gave any insight into his nature, or... Well, I think we know a little bit about what he wants.
They, of course, they consider themselves almost, well, because of the Black Pharaoh, they consider themselves elevated to a god status. And that's what they think of themselves. Apparently, this is not Omar's, according to him, first form, almost. It sounds like he's been alive for centuries.
Shelley furrows her brows. That's something like what Gavigan said. Did Omar say anything about Gavigan?
He does not like Gavigan.
Oh, imagine that.
He thinks that, well, Omar thinks that he's the chosen one and liked by their god or whatever, but something about Gavigan being too soft or something. Gavigan thinks the same of Omar, thinks that Omar's thinking is backward.
If it seems like one thing, it seems like everywhere we go and we meet these little groups of them, they're always at each other's throat.
I I never thought I'd say it, but I'm actually a little glad that Edward's here. He at least shows some semblance of humanity.
For you.
That's
Yes.
something. But if this, and I can't, I'm not saying I believe it, but if this Ashakti really is that old and has been doing these things for so long, I can't imagine that there's any shred of humanity left.
No, he thinks himself is very much above us, and I assume he thinks it was beneath him in general to speak with us in the first place, but he did. And Shelley, I know that Gavigan wants you to go with him, and he's asked us not to interfere with your decision.
And Shelley shrugs. Oh, well, let's not talk about that nonsense. She seems a little uncomfortable. But does Mr. Ashtakti know about, she has a hard time verbalizing it, Gavigan's feelings about me?
But of course he does.
That worries me. I feel like it rather paints a target on my back.
I apologize. I got a bit brazen with El Shakti. I assumed we were going to die in there. And might have thrown Gavigan under, painted him in bad light.
What do you mean?
I apologize, Shelley. I mentioned it. His feelings. How clouded he is about you.
Well, you're in great pain, and anything to fire back at your enemies. She says, I don't blame you, and it's likely that he knows Gavigan well enough to sense something. I'm sure you didn't do any harm that wasn't already done. Don't worry about it.
I mean, I don't think it should be worrisome at all. They're both how do I put this in a nice way? Our enemies. Neither one of them are our friends. I don't think. The more they worry about each other, the better off we are.
Yes, you're probably right. I just have an overactive imagination. It, serves me well when I'm trying to invent something useful, but it distracts me sometimes when I'm trying to not think about things that are probably very unlikely anyway. Natalia, can I get you a drink? I don't want you to drink too much. I suspect the doctor will have something quite strong for you.
Just water is fine.
Oh, yes, you both must be parched. What am I thinking? And she kind of runs around finding, whether cold tea or water or whatever, and giving it to you guys.
And there is a knock on the door at this point.
I'll get it, Shelley says, and she glances over to where her shotgun is, kind of takes it and props it up against the wall by the door. And she walks over. Who is it?
It's Frank.
Oh, okay, Frank.
Doctor.
Oh, thank goodness. And she kind of flings the door open.
And Frank's there, and he has an English-looking, obviously a doctor. He's got his doctor bag. He says, "This is Dr. Winston. He'll take care of you."
Oh, thank you, Dr. Winston. Right over here.
And he just walks in and follows you.
My friend got roughed up a bit in the bazaar, and her arm is paining her quite a bit.
He says, "Egyptians, I'm sure."
Yes, quite.
He just shakes his head and he says, "I swear they're reverting to savagery." He says, "God knows what we're even doing in this place anymore." He says, "I'll give you assistance I can."
She's in great pain. Do you have anything?
"Oh, yes, of course." And he takes care of you. We don't need to go through the whole rigmarole, but yeah, he goes about his business. He's a little stuffy in his approach to everything, and but he looks at Natalia's arm and kind of not good, and he says, "As I said, savages. It looks like they tried to rip your arm off." He says that's not going to. She says, "I don't think that's going to heal properly. I'll do what I can, but I can make no promises."
Of course, Doctor. Do your best.
Yes.
And Natalia is pretty emotional at this point. Kind of hearing that her arm, she knows it's pretty messed up, but hearing that it won't heal 100%.
Mm-hmm. I need to take a really quick break right here. And okay, and we're back. Okay, so Natalia obviously not happy at that diagnosis, but he does give you some pain medicine. You're not really sure what it is, and he leaves some for you. He says you actually it's probably laudanum. And he just leaves you a bit of that. And
I'll take care of paying him from the wads of cash in my purse.
oh, he says, "Oh no," he says, "all right, Mr. Nasford already assured me that he would be reimbursing me."
Oh.
And Frank just says, it's the least I can do. He says, "I have some discretionary funds at the consulate."
Oh, well, as long as it's on Uncle Sam. I think
yeah.
Thaddeus has probably paid taxes enough to pay for it.
Or not.
Yes, you'd be surprised how much I'm able to keep every year.
They're rich.
Shocking. Yeah. The doctor kind of actually gives Natalia, it's enough to make Natalia want to pass out, like she's tired and just falls. She drifts off to sleep. Thaddeus is not in quite as bad a shape.
He might indulge. He's probably got some bruised ribs and other things.
Oh yeah, you're in pain for sure. I mean, it's just dull ache, that at least your arm didn't almost get ripped off.
Yes.
And the doctor just says, he gives you a little card and he says, "This is my office." He says, "I'm only just down the street a few minutes." He says, "If you need me, send for me." He says, "I'm sure you can get one of the boys here at the hotel to do that if you need." And he just kind of very businesslike wishes you well and departs. He's not a very personable man.
Thaddeus,
bedside manner.
Thaddeus
not
would
so
walk him
much.
to the door and close it after he leaves.
Okay.
Oh,
And
Frank's probably still here.
Frank is making to go with the doctor and just says, well, I hope you're all right, and you know where to find me right across the street if you need anything. I'm at your disposal.
Yeah,
Yes.
Shelley will go up and kind of just say thanks again, Frank, and give him a little peck on the cheek. Try not to trouble yourself too much about it.
He says, well, he says, I just want you to know I'm right here for you. Anything you need, anything at all. He says, but you take care of your friends now.
And she gives him kind of a weak smile and little wave.
You can see
Shuts
he's
the
a
door as
little blushy and kind of he kind of forgets that he's supposed to be leaving, and then he kind of awkward. Yes. So I'll see you, and he goes out and close the door, and he and the doctor are gone.
Shelley turns around from the door, kind of a sad expression on her face. Well, I continue to surprise myself. And then she just probably goes and pours herself a little drink. Is that starting to kick in for you yet, Natalia?
Oh, she's
Oh,
she's
she's
out.
asleep.
Yeah,
she's already
passed
out.
out.
Okay.
Yeah, sure. I imagine Thaddeus probably sleeping a little bit too. Now he's in the comfort of a bed, and if you want, we can say a late lunch gets brought up. Yeah, in the chair. Late lunch gets brought up, and then you all are kind of awake again in the afternoon.
Shelley
to
is
try to eat.
leafing through life as a god, and she comes to one of the poems and she says, we really should pay more attention to these things. And I don't know what actually it is, but I know that it's mentioned in here because I was looking at it over the past few days, that there's a poem called The Trappings of a Queen, and the poem's not in here, but I bet that has something to do with this. Does it? Anyway,
Yes,
she's reading it.
Yes. If you read that, yeah, I don't have the actual words, but it does describe the regalia of the queen, and there are 3 pieces to the regalia. If you hold on just a second, there's a girdle is mentioned, and the color matches it. The poetic description of it matches the girdle that you saw. And
There's no convenient references to how to destroy them, is there?
Oh, yeah. Yes. Whatever thou doest, do not do this. Yeah.
Right.
No, there's no convenient references to how one might destroy it. So yes, there is the necklace, and her girdle, and finally her crown. And these are all. The poem suggests that they are imbued with godly power, and are the symbols of her eternal perfection. Or I think it would say more like immortal perfection.
Shelley kind of just reads it out loud to everybody and says, well, that's not very helpful now, I suppose. Still, I think there might be more in these books.
Yeah, I don't doubt there is. Thaddeus is taking a drink of his drink he made.
I will make one. There is one reference additionally in that poem about those things where it mentions that it's sort of it's implying that on the darkest night is when her regalia shines the brightest and the true power is revealed.
The darkest night. Well, how long do we have till the next new moon?
We can go to the calendar. Did you request a phases? You did request a phases of the moon, so you can see on. You see I can pull that up for you. Where it is going to, it's Monday the 9th of March, and you can see the phases down below.
It's the 24th.
Yeah, the 24th. Well, if we do want to try to do something, we might have time, but right now you should all just rest, I suppose.
I'm unsure about what more we can do, Shelley.
Well, we haven't seen what or where the Clive expedition is currently doing. We don't know exactly where they try to perform the ceremony. I'm convinced that Kafur still has things that could help us. If we could convince him.
Who? Sorry.
Ali Kafur, Dr. Kafur from the museum.
Oh, yes. Yes, Dr. Kafur.
It does feel a bit hopeless. I can't stop myself from trying to think about it anyway. She starts rummaging through, trunks and pulls out the headdress. And we haven't ever figured out what this does. Frankly, I don't think we've even tried.
No, I don't believe you have.
You said, 3 months for this machine or whatever it is.
Whatever it is.
And you don't know what it does. Oh.
It seems like some sort of a weapon, but she kind of wrinkles her forehead. I think there must be more to it than that. They've never spoken about attacking someone specifically. Maybe Gavigan would tell me more.
Maybe. But I very much think that he would rather you go with him. Find it that way.
She nods. She kind of shrugs. Well, how are you feeling?
Dull pain. This laudanum is helping. But I'm not going to ever be 100% anymore, Shelley.
Oh, no, don't be silly. No, it'll take time.
I'm going to have to do quite a bit of physical therapy, I think.
She looks down at her arm. Can see her face twist in sadness as she looks.
I've worked very hard for this. And we should have ran or something when we could have. It was stupid to fight.
It was. But as it turns out, we would have just run right into them. I don't know what the answer would have been. We're all lucky that we survived. I have to tell you, running down that tunnel, and she kind of like goes distant, like remembering the monster. I didn't think I'd see the light of day.
I'm glad you escaped, Shelley. I was worried.
Worried about me. Imagine that. I was fine. It was you two that were in the real danger, I think. As frightening as that creature was, I think perhaps your monster was more dangerous.
If you had not made the deal, I believe on the next new moon we would have suffered the same fate as, well, everyone the Brotherhood has gotten their hands on.
Did you see the imam while you were imprisoned?
They struck him down. He struck him down while I was bleeding.
So he's dead.
Yeah. All of them are dead.
There has to be. Oh, it's just the very day we find someone who might be able to help us, and they're attacked. There has to be other people. When the doctor was talking to us about the reign of the Black Pharaoh and what brought him down and how the other gods, was it Isis? I don't know. But they joined together to bring him down. It just, if there's still a cult of the Black Pharaoh, doesn't it make sense that there would still be the opposition?
It's finding them, enlisting their assistance that I think is the difficult part.
It's true. But maybe I do know that if one good thing has come out of this, is I know that Ebi is someone we can trust. And he's the sort of man that knows a little bit about everything in the city. And I don't know, maybe he could point us in the right direction.
Well,
As if on cue, there is a knock on the door.
I wasn't going to say anything.
And
it doesn't hurt to try. I mean, we've already gone this far. And if we have such a short timeline, we either can give up at this point or keep trying. Though, a large part of me just wants to go home.
and there is a knock on the door.
Shelley will again kind of leave the recuperators seated and Walk over to the door. Who is it?
You have a visitor, ma'am. Mr. Ibi Musa. Shall I send him up?
Oh, yes, please.
Very good. And you've noticed they do this every time. And you've noticed a pattern. They have no trouble sending Westerners up right to your room, but if there's an Egyptian that wants to see you, they always come up to see if you want to have them sent up or not. So EB comes up. So every time he comes over, if he's gonna come in, which hasn't been that many times actually, but so he does come in eventually after a couple of minutes. He says, "Oh, and how are we all doing?"
Come in, Evie. And she shuts the door. Well, as well as could be hoped for, I think. We've had a doctor in to see Natalia.
That is good.
And you? You haven't run into any trouble, have you?
He says, "I have had no trouble of my own. I have managed to stay safe. Unlike your friends, I'm afraid."
Well, they're quite careless with their lives.
I see.
Of necessity, I suppose, but... Evie, did you manage to pick up a paper from that newspaper that you stopped by? I got the English paper.
Yes.
She kind of gestures to the one. It's on a table somewhere.
Yes. He'll read it for you. It basically describes that there was an attack of the temple. Was it basically? It says there's two sides to this story. It's apparent from the article that the authorities are currently leaning towards the theory that the insane population rose up against the priests and murdered them brutally. But they said that the newspaper also got a tip that it was not those people, and that it was in fact a group of Egyptian men that broke into the temple and murdered everyone, and that the authorities have been made aware of this tip, and that if anyone has information concerning this tragedy, that they're to go to the Egyptian police. Clearly, the slant of the article is they don't want the British authorities involved. That seems, it as horrible as the thing is, the tone of it is definitely keep the British out of our business. This is our matter to handle. It's our holy place that's been violated. And
Does it make mention of that room or that kind of...
It doesn't go into a lot of... No, it doesn't go into that much detail. And Evie says, "I told them about it." He says, which has to be how they found out. I mean, they counted the number of dead, and it's like 18 people dead. And he said they wouldn't have had that count if they didn't know about the secret room. So he said they must have pointed that out, the authorities.
Yes, and I think the manner of injuries would not be consistent with a few crazy people. But, well, she shrugs, at least people are looking into it. And it's not getting whitewashed completely like it is. And she kind of indicates the English paper in that one.
He says, "No, this is a tragedy. All of Cairo will be most upset, and there will be much mourning. These were holy men with a the mercy of Allah that they were showing to these poor souls.
Now, I hope that people continue to be merciful, that someone else is able to step in and take care of them. I don't know who that would be.
I do not know either. But there are wealthy men who will perhaps feel moved to do something.
Shelley kind of gives a sidelong glance at Thaddeus, but doesn't say anything.
E.B. doesn't seem to have been even implying. He just seems to be musing about it, not looking at Thaddeus or anything.
Thaddeus would be sipping his drink, staring at him.
He says, you wanted me to find out about the Clive expedition, and I have done so for you.
Oh yes. Where's my head? Had almost forgotten about it. So what were you able to find out?
They are currently digging in Memphis. They have moved their entire operation from Giza to Memphis after their embarrassment.
What's in Memphis?
Oh, not much really. There are countless minor burial sites, they say, but it is really more usually a place of interest to locals, students and that sort of thing, learning their art there rather than serious foreign archaeologists.
I know that most good Egyptians worship Allah. Are there still people that worship the old gods in Egypt?
The old gods? You mean like Isis and Osiris and such?
Yes.
He says, you might find some farmer somewhere or nomad, but truly, no, this is not a thing anymore. These gods are long dead. Allah has replaced them all. He shines his light of truth on the people of Egypt. No, these were false gods of the past.
Of course. I just know that some of these bad men might have an interest in that sort of thing, and, well, it might have been a direction to look, I suppose.
He says, I do not think I have ever met a man who has claimed to believe in the ancient gods of Egypt. Though many can tell you stories about them, but as far as believing in them, I don't think so.
So, if one were to travel to Memphis, how far is it, and is it a day trip? Is there a place that you would stay there?
Let's see. Memphis isn't too far. Let me check my map here. Yeah. We can go to the map of Cairo. Still some people left over that don't belong there. And you can see, Cairo is here. The ruins of Memphis are down there. It's really not all that far. Most of these excavation locations are all within a day's travel of Cairo.
Yeah. I'm going to assume they've got some sort of a map.
Mm-hmm.
She'll look at it and then kind of bring it over to Natalia and Thaddeus. Point to Memphis. Point to Dashur. Red Pyramid, Bent Pyramid.
We already know what they're doing in Memphis.
Probably
Oh.
getting some ribs.
So
Is
what
it any
is
Faceland?
planned?
Nothing.
What is planned for Clive expedition?
I'm sorry, what did you say?
Oh, what is planned for Clive expedition?
Oh, you're asking Evie?
No, I'm asking Shelley.
Oh, okay.
I don't know. I think sometimes you don't know what the next step to take is until you poke around a bit. And she shrugs. I'm not a detective or anything, but and all the books, that's what they say, all those mystery books, that you just have to keep poking around and asking the right questions. And then maybe you figure something out. Other than that, Dr. Kafur is the only other lead we really have. Unless you can think of something else. Certainly our books, maybe while you're recuperating, might take a few days to really pore over them.
I found some interesting things within my own text. Not sure exactly how I want to proceed with them, but I will try.
Well, that doesn't sound unpromising. What about you, Thaddeus? Are you making any progress? I know yours is, in Latin?
Yes. When I get a chance to read it, it's coming along pretty good. But there hasn't had much time since we've been.
Well, I think for the next couple of days, maybe you should both just take the time. No sense in trying to push yourselves.
Alright. I don't think I could do much anyways, even if I wanted to. And, of course, AB, thank you. I'm glad you're not hurt in all this.
Yes.
Well, he says, yes, my physical body is not harmed. But seeing what those men did, it has wounded me inside.
I understand.
He gives almost, his face almost looks bitter or resentful or angry or something.
I know that probably you see English people throwing their money around and thinking that around in her purse. I'm not a wealthy person, and I'm not trying to impress anyone, but if you find some way to use this to help the people from the temple, would you?
He puts a hand to his chest and says, Of course I will. He says, there will be a need for these poor souls to be placed somewhere.
She just kind of...
The temple must be, the mosque must be restored.
And she nods and kind of hands him the wads of cash.
Yep. He accepts it, and he actually looks impressed.
I think probably we'll be staying in the next couple of days, Evie. If you wouldn't mind, I know you're all right. I'd appreciate it.
Yes. I will take this money to the mosque. There will be someone there, I'm sure. They will be grateful. Do you wish me to give it to them without naming you?
Oh, certainly don't. Yeah, leave us out of it for sure. I don't want to draw any attention to us, and just say maybe that you've taken up a collection, and maybe that will encourage others to be generous.
Yes, I will do that. He says, when would you like me to return?
Well, I don't know that we're going anywhere for a couple of days, but please just check in maybe tomorrow or the next morning, just so we know that you're all right. And perhaps if they're feeling better, we may know what our next course of action is.
He says, you don't worry about me, Miss Shelley. Ibi Musa can take care of himself. This is my city.
Well, I'm very confident in your ability to keep yourself safe. Just, we have just try not to draw attention to yourself. Be a little extra careful.
I will be very careful. We are dealing with very dangerous men.
I'm glad you understand. And can see that not everyone does.
Yes. Well, I will bid you a good night then. And he wishes each of the three of you, he kind of does a little hand to his chest and bows to each of the three of you. And he says, swift recovery to you two.
Thank you, Ibi.
Yes, Nyarlathotep was glad. I'm feeling better already.
And he gives you a toothy grin and goes out.
As he closes the door, Shelley turns to Thaddeus. I just gave him all the money from our suite. She starts to laugh a little bit.
Oh, you did you?
That's what you get for getting all doped up and unable to defend your wallet.
Well,
Did you steal my laudanum?
no, no. I just have the whiskey. But
Mhm.
however, I guess I would have to go find some more money, I suppose.
There's always a bank. It may take a
Yes.
little time, but you can always get money.
Whiskey is not free, you know.
Well, I'm quite sure you can get some sort of letter of credit, or however you rich types do it.
We just go to the tree and pluck it off.
I wondered. That's the secret. And, Shelley will kind of reach in. She starts fingering the headdress of eyes. I
Mhm.
think I might give this some attention over the next couple of days.
Okay. And we're going to stop in a minute here, but we will end with you do get yet another visitor. Not too long after EB leaves, and it's this fellow when you open the door.
Shelley sees him. She looks back over her shoulder at Thaddeus and Natalia,
Mm-hmm.
and she kind of gestures toward her shotgun, with the one hand. He wouldn't be able to see what she's pointing at. And then she actually goes into the hallway to talk to him.
Okay.
Well, Thaddeus would get up and mosey over to the shot.
Okay.
And
yes.
Shelley would just kind of look at him and say, "Would you wait here a minute? Could you take a message to Edward?"
I'm actually here to deliver one.
Oh,
He wants to invite you to dinner, so you can discuss things if you're interested. What shall I tell him?
here?
Yes,
What time?
6:30.
All right then.
Was there a message?
Well, if I'm going to speak to him at dinner, then I don't think it'll be necessary.
Right, so no message. And he just turns and stomps off.
Shelley watches him go, her heart already pounding at the thought of having to do this again, and just deliberately steels herself and walks back into the room, shuts the door. Well, hopefully we won't have any more visitors today.
Hopefully.
Thaddeus would put down the shotgun. Well, it sounds like you have your evening plan.
She smiles at him weakly. Well, planned for me, yes. But at this point, it wouldn't do to offend him, I think. And he knows things. And she shrugs. If the price is dinner, then I think that's one that I can pay.
Oh, yes, no doubt. Thaddeus would go sit down, sip his drink, and look at Natalia. Do you need any more painkiller or anything?
I'm starting to feel a bit in my arm. If I keep taking this too much, I feel like I'll end up like Larkin.
Yes, well, I don't think you had lost your soul yet.
Thankfully, I haven't met a man with many rows of teeth. Follows me silently around.
No, you just have the man with the one row of teeth, I think.
I like them better with only one.
Well, they're all there right now, at least.
All right, I think I'm gonna call it there. Okay, this is a continuation of our Mask of Nyarlathotep game. This is technically a separate session, just with Slip playing Shelley to do a little catch-up stuff here. So Shelley wants to try to figure out what this headdress of Gavigan's is. My apology again for the picture. That's the closest thing I could find. It's pretty terrible. but yes, imagine it much cooler looking. And not like a New Orleans sort of head,
Mardi Gras.
Mardi Gras costume. So make a Cthulhu Mythos check for me. Yep. No idea yet. So you can keep doing that as many every day for as long as you want until you succeed or decide to start focusing on something else.
Okay.
Okay, so where we left was Gavigan was going to have breakfast with you the next morning if you were up for that. You had a visitor at the end of the day in the form of Mr. Tibbs. And you had said you would be willing to meet him to pass
Yes.
that message on. All right. So, Thaddeus and Natalia are going to be completely wiped out and sleeping to try to recover. So what do you want to do? Are you doing anything that night other than looking over the headdress? Or are you just going to go to sleep?
She spends quite a bit of time looking over at the headdress. She reviews her notes and spends a lot of time poring over the drawings that she made that represent the blueprints. Thinking about that, feeling a little bit tortured that she doesn't know what exactly she did, but she doesn't think it can be good. And she lies in bed just thinking for a while.
So that's another thing. I mean, I will let you, if you want, like, instead of studying the headdress, so each day I'll give you a chance to, you can either study the headdress, try to figure that out, or if you want to go over the blueprint things again and try to keep figuring out, you might be able to figure out a little more about what that whole thing was, right? I would give you a chance to try to.
Okay. Well, she did the headdress this night, but I'll keep that in mind.
Okay. Okay. Well, shall we move on to the morning then? Anything before your breakfast date?
She keeps up with her normal ritual, including the actual ritual.
What do you mean say that again? Oh, I've lost you again. Let me jump out and come back in. Okay. I couldn't hear it. You said something about the ritual.
Yeah, she does her normal morning ritual, which includes the actual ritual.
Okay.
Scepters.
Yes. Okay. Good enough.
Yeah, and then she'll take some time to put herself together before breakfast and then head down.
I'll let you try a Cthulhu Mythos roll again, or an occult roll. I don't know if your occult is any better than your Cthulhu Mythos for this. I should have been letting you do this as each morning as you go through your little ritual. Yeah. Okay. Okay, unless you want to spend 4 luck.
No.
Okay. All right. So, down to breakfast then. Are you early or on time or late?
I would say she's pretty much on time. That's kind of her go-to. It makes her feel better to be punctual to things.
Okay. Then you can see he already has a table set for you. And you can see your 2 friends. Actually, you know their names, or at least what they're called, Mr. Tibbs and Dinsdale. You see them at another table, again, having some tea and looks like scones or something, and just sort of paying attention, not paying attention. But they're an easy view of the table where you'll be sitting. And this time Gavigan is seated facing the entrance, so you can see him, and he kind of gives you a little nod of acknowledgement, almost a wink, maybe.
She makes note of Tibbs and Dinsdale, doesn't really, say or do anything to them or in their direction, just walks to the table, seats herself.
He gets up. He gets up to meet you. And his head starts coming in towards your head. How do you react? It's very quick and very natural.
I think she'd probably be slightly frozen with surprise, so I don't think she tries to dodge it.
He's just giving you a light peck on the cheek, and then he turns and kind of guides you to the table, to your chair, to seat you, and just says, "Good morning, my dear. I'm so glad you could make breakfast. I hope you're hungry."
A bit, yes. She kind of glances around the room. Has she seen, by any chance, is Frank in here right now?
He is not there.
Okay. This looks lovely. I'll pour myself some tea.
He says, "Oh, no, they have servants for that." And he motions over, and a waiter comes over, and he asks if he pours some tea for the lady, of course, and he does, serves you.
She just kind of smiles, waits. It's gonna putting sugar in her cup and stuff, and just kind of dithering.
He says, "It's very charming, actually, how unused you are to be waited upon. You'll have to get used to that."
It's true. I'm not very accustomed to it. Even traveling with Thaddeus, well, I suppose it's not been that long. My first impulse is still to do everything myself.
Speaking of Mr. Pepin, how are your friends doing? I trust they're faring well. Ugh, I keep losing you. Hold on. I don't know why it's happening. I can see you're talking, but I can't hear anything. Slip. Okay, yeah. I could not hear your response.
Oh, she just said, yes, they're well. They're spending the day recuperating, and I think probably the next. We'll have to see from there.
I see. Well, well, enough about them then. uh, he says, I'm curious to see what your plans are for the day, or for the week, for that matter.
She smiles. I don't know. I've been thinking a lot, and with that, she kind of lifts her tea up and blows on it a little bit, takes a tiny sip, puts it down back on the dish. I've spoken some with Thaddeus and Natalia, and I'm glad that you invited me to breakfast this morning, because there's some things I wanted to discuss with you.
Excellent. Well, shall we order breakfast, and then I'm all ears.
Of course, we've got time.
And he calls the waiter over and says that you're ready to order, and you order your stuff. Whatever you want. And the waiter goes, and he just looks at you expectantly and gives you that little Gavigan smile.
Oh, well, so Natalia, she spoke to me about her encounter with Omar. She bites her lip a little bit.
It can be a bit unnerving.
Yes, it's very difficult to unnerve Natalia. She's brave, and even when she's afraid, I think she turns to bluster. And during their conversation, it did come up. I came up. You and I came up.
Yes.
And Natalia said that she rather emphasized to Omar that I was a weakness of yours. And he seemed quite interested in that.
Interested how, I wonder?
He wanted to hear more. I don't know exactly what he might have been thinking, but I can't help feel that a giant target's been painted on my back.
You can see this has caused him to start thinking. I see.
At any rate, I think he's likely to use me as some sort of leverage or tool, or even just if I were hurt, it might upset you, or maybe he'd try to provoke you into some display that seemed weak.
Yes.
I don't want him to do that. Let me offer you something that you can't possibly be in possession of.
I'm intrigued.
It's the female perspective. And she gives a little smile at the end of that.
Yes. Quite right.
I've been thinking about this scenario, which is still hard for me to really wrap my mind around, that Omar hopes to bring his mother back. And I've been thinking, you said you wanted to see this happen, and I can understand. I certainly think that it would be something to see for certain. My sense of curiosity is piqued. But you also mentioned that she would be cross with Omar for not doing it sooner.
Quite. I can't imagine she wouldn't be.
Yes, I imagine she will be, but all the mothers I know, especially the mothers with sons, as cross as they are with, when their sons disappoint them, I think it's partly because they see their sons as extensions of themselves. Their successes become the mother's success, and their failures become the mother's failure. And anyone who outdoes or makes their son look bad, she kind of pauses.
Yes.
They are seen as, well, not in a favorable light.
So you're suggesting that if I tweak his nose too brazenly, his mother will not take action against me? Perhaps. He says, I don't honestly think I have to do much of anything except stand in the background and observe. I might have trouble resisting a comment or two, admittedly. Jeez.
Okay. You can hear me now?
Yes.
I don't know what is going on.
I know, it's weird. It happened, and as soon as I jump out and jump back in, it's fine again. I just have no idea. It's weird.
I think you could stand there and say nothing at all. I think that as soon as she realizes that you, well, rather outrank her son and have achieved some sort of success, she's likely to do what she can to tear you down. And I don't know exactly what would be in her power to do, but if she's in favor with your master, that could be something. So anyway, I was thinking that perhaps you shouldn't stay. If you leave and Omar succeeds, well, you can claim that you came in his time of need and played a critical role in getting that girl back, which Omar so carelessly let slip through his fingers. So it's still a win for you. And if you leave and something gets in his way and he fails, well, he loses status. He can't do anything to stab you in the back necessarily, and I suppose if this Nitocris needs to be brought back to life, that could be something that happens later, maybe. But anyway, you couldn't possibly be blamed for it because you weren't even here.
As you've been speaking, his smile has been getting broader and broader, and his eyes are like practically twinkling by the time you're done. And he just puts his hand out to take your hand. And he says, "My dear Shelley, will you ever stop surprising me?"
She lets him take her hand, and she kind of blushes and looks away. Have I said something to embarrass myself again?
Quite the contrary. You're very astute, And I've heard of men who take the advice of their wives, and I always thought that was foolish, laughable, really. But I suppose I can be wrong. I think your observations are quite astute.
She looks up at him, now kind of actually being flattered, but she also seems a little relieved that he's listening.
Mm-hmm. He says, I'm quite seeing your point. I hadn't thought of it that way.
Of course, I wouldn't think that you would need to do anything necessarily to nudge his failure. You both serve the same person, but
No, but you're right. My purpose in staying is quite indulgent. It was really because I savored that moment in my imagination of seeing him humiliated. But I realize I don't really need that moment. I already have my victory. And there's no sense in causing unnecessary friction between our two chapters.
Shelley nods. She thinks for a minute. You know, I've been fighting my whole life to truly be seen, valued for more than my face. It's a nice face, I suppose, and my friends, they like me and they care about me. But when I disappeared from London, I don't think they spent more than an evening's effort even trying to track me down. I think I'm more of a nuisance or a distraction to them at times. Even my husband, she says, she kind of looks down at the wedding band that she still wears on her right hand. He did love me. He left me alone in the end. But
Yes.
I left you twice. I literally shot you in the back, and yet here you are. Because you see me.
Oh, he's lapping that up. You can see you've definitely kind of touched a good nerve, if you want to put it that way. He's got his elbow on the table and his kind of hand on his chin, and he's head bent forward, and he's kind of looking up at you, and smiling, and you can just see that and then he reaches forward again and kind of puts a hand on your shoulder and says, Shelley, I may have been a bit late in recognizing what a truly remarkable human being you are, but I knew there was something different about you from the very first moment I saw you. I will not leave you. And if all turns out as planned, we will have an infinity together.
She
And
kind of looks at it. Oh, go ahead.
No, that's fine. How does she looks what?
She just kind of looks at him, and then her eyebrows furrow. You won't leave?
I'll leave Cairo if you'll come with me.
She looks at him for a minute. Yes, I've decided that I will.
Excellent. He reaches into his coat and pulls out what looks to be a ship ticket. He said, well, this ticket was for the 26th, but perhaps I can find us an earlier ship. He said the 26th will be too late to miss the birthday party, if you will.
Yes. I do think that we should be far away from here when that happens. But either way, I've made my decision.
Good. I'm very happy to hear that. And I understand if you must help your friends get situated, especially in their time of need.
Yes, they're both somewhat helpless right now, and I don't like the idea of leaving them that way.
Yes. Well, I'll tell you what. I will today find out what I can about moving that date up. To find us a different ship. Sooner passage. If all goes well, we'll be able to leave by the weekend.
Oh.
How soon would you be prepared to go?
She thinks for a minute. I want Natalia and Thaddeus to be up and about and able to take care of things, but putting it off too long, I think, will only make it harder. So I don't know. I'm not going to be able to tell them about this. Perhaps you can send someone to my room later and I can give them a few of my things to hold so that I can, when the time comes, I can just leave.
If you leave a couple of things at the front desk, I can send someone to retrieve them. That might be less intrusive.
Perfect. Just, she shrugs. Let me know. And I'll be there.
Excellent. He's looking at you like he can barely believe his good fortune. That's you can see he's almost like a kid for a moment, which is probably odd for you to see him that way.
Yeah, these peeks into his vulnerable, that make him seem vulnerable they make him both more bearable, but also make her feel a little queasy in the stomach, oh gosh, I can't just shoot this guy now, that sort of thing. It makes it more complicated, especially since the things she's been saying, I can't say any of it was a lie.
Mm-hmm.
She might have other thoughts and feelings riding underneath them, but that was all pretty much true.
Yeah. You get the sense that he is being completely genuine. I'll let you make a psychology roll if you want to. If you think
she always
might
fails these.
You might not be sure. Yeah, it seems quite genuine to you. He pays for the bill then, and he seems eager now to get about his job. And he gets up from the table and helps you helps you rise. And he looks around the room for a moment with almost this I don't know what the word, maybe like schoolboy embarrassment, and then he comes in to kiss you.
She lets him. She's kind of, I mean, she's done it before and she's kind of expecting it. And she actually tries to open herself up to the experience, whether or not.
Well, only you can, only you know. If, yeah, I don't know what's in Shelley's mind, so I'm just telling you. So, but in any case, whether it's there's uncertainty, or he doesn't seem to mind. He's completely, his mind is already on. It's just, and he says you, when you can get some things together, I'll send one of the boys over to get those things after dinner tonight. That should give you some time. And if there is a ticket, I'll have it left for you at the desk. Oh, and he gets out oh shoot, I think I lost you again. Yep, I did. He gets out a little piece of paper and he scribbles down the name of the hotel and the room number where he's staying.
Oh, I thought you would be staying with Omar, she says.
Oh, heavens no. He says, I don't want to tempt fate. And he says, to be honest, I can only stand so much of that man's presence.
Well, I think that's wise. Well, she just kind of gives like a little timid one-armed shrug. I suppose I shall hear from you soon. If it takes more than a few days, and Thaddeus and Natalia are up, well, I hope that you'll be too busy with other things to check in on them.
Yes. He says, well, I'll have to pay Omar one last visit and let him know I'm leaving, just to be polite. But other than that, I don't believe I'll have much in the way of other business to attend to.
All right, then. I don't know if it would be a good idea to mention to Omar that I'm going with you.
Oh, no, I won't mention anything about it. If he asks, and he very well might, I'll just say I have no idea what your intentions are, and that they are not of great concern to me. I will intimate to him, perhaps, that you rebuffed me, subtly.
She kind of quirks up the corner of her mouth. Well, I hope he doesn't have too hard of a time swallowing that, but...
Oh, I think he'll rather lap it up and gloat over my failure to conquer you.
At that word, she definitely kind of blushes and looks away, and then she kind of gives a little uncomfortable laugh and says, yes, well, people tend to see what they want to see and believe what they want to believe, and I...
Exactly so.
All right, then. My friends are probably getting up soon. I should probably go make sure they don't need anything.
Yes, of course. He says, good. And he hands you the the piece of paper with the room name. He said, you can come anytime if you feel you're ready to leave before we depart.
she looks at it again and nods, kind of folds it up and puts it in her bag.
Okay. And he leaves, and you can see his two goons that were watching nearby. They're already, ready to get up and go, and they leave with him.
Any read on them? Like, do they look mad or anything?
Well, they probably have no idea what just happened. I mean, they're not close enough to have been listening.
Well, he just kissed her, so.
Yeah, I mean, you might get a bit of a cold look from Mr. Tibbs. Dinsdale doesn't seem to care about you one way or the other. You never really did anything to piss him off personally. But yeah, Mr. Tibbs clearly isn't your biggest fan. But he's being very professional about the whole thing. He just kind of gets up and follows Gavigan and just maybe gives you the briefest of sidelong glances.
Yeah,
As they head out.
I'd like to say that she kind of met his gaze, but she probably didn't. She's pretty timid.
That's your call. Okay. All right, so they head out, and so what does Shelley do now?
I think she'd probably just go check on the other two and make sure that they didn't need anything. A bedpan. I don't know.
Yeah, whatever. Sure. She tends to them. Gets Thaddeus. You know what he wants, so pour him a drink. Yeah. So I'm gonna say they're doing fine. Natalia's not great. I mean, she's gonna be. Your guess is she'll probably have to be in bed for a couple more days, really. Thaddeus seems to be coming along better, but he's also kind of tired. So.
Yeah, she goes back and helps them out, and actually, she feels kind of like some of the weight's been lifted off her shoulder. Like she feels kind of like, oh well, just having made a decision and Gavigan actually listening to her kind of made her feel a little bit better. So she's a little bit more cheerful. After a while, she goes back to the room, and when she's alone, she starts to pack up a few things because if this happens, she doesn't want to be stuck without a change of clothes for the third time. She's write a letter in her notebook. I think she just thinks about things for a while. She might go for a walk at some point just to get out, but I don't have any real critical other things that I wanted to get done right now.
Okay.
Spend time trying to figure out the headdress.
Okay. Sounds good. I may just make an executive decision and allow a couple of days to pass. I don't think Natalia and Thaddeus would have an issue with recovering for a couple of days and reading their books, which I think they sounded like they wanted to kind of do that.
Yeah, I think we had all said that's what we were going to do.
Okay. So why don't you tell me what you want? Do you want Gavigan to find a ticket that's sooner, or would you rather have more time?
I think that there's maybe some backroom discussions you and I need to have about this before. I say so, but I think at this point she doesn't want to go, but she also, if she is gonna go, doesn't want it to take too long. So she'd probably be okay with a sooner.
Okay. Well, why don't you make a luck check for me? And if you succeed, he does find something within the week that is suitable. Otherwise, it'd have to be the following week. You succeeded.
Ah.
So he does find a ship within the next, let's see, I'm gonna call it 2 die 4 days, because anything more than 2 days would be too soon.
Yeah.
So,
Ooh, soon
all right,
though.
1, 2, 3. Okay, so the 12th, that is Thursday, and it is Monday now. Oh, I'm sorry.
my
No,
gosh.
1, 2, 3. No, sorry, the 13th. So that's a Friday.
Okay.
So that is, so he actually sends you. Did you actually put anything down there to be picked up?
Yeah, she did.
You did. Okay. So in exchange, you get a call up from the front desk saying that there's a message for you at the front desk, and they bring it up, and it is a ticket on the Golden Star, which is a luxury cruise ship on the 13th.
All right. She, takes it, looks at it, her heart beating like a million miles a minute, questioning whether she's really going to do this or not. But she tucks it away with her other things.
Mm-hmm. Sounds good.